Hello, and welcome to The Hump with Katie. I'm your host, Katie Thiroux. I am thrilled to bring you today's episode with bassist, educator, and so much more, Jean Perla. If you're new to The Hump, this is a series where I interview some of the world's most talented artists and musicians and find out why are they so amazing, how did it all happen, and ultimately, what can we learn from their journey. Before I bring you today's amazing episode, I'd love to thank our sponsors, and first up, we have the clothing company, Jams World. You guys, I absolutely love Jams World. I'm wearing a Jams World right now, of course, and the reason why I love it is because the fabric is made from 100% spun crushed rayon, and it keeps me cool and comfortable. They've been making clothing in Honolulu, Hawaii since 1964, and the artwork is so unique. It's screen printed right onto the fabric, and it looks like a piece of art. Go to jamsworld.com and use the promo code JAZZ15, and you'll get 15% off your entire online purchase. Next up, I'd like to thank Colstein's String Shop. I absolutely love Colstein's. They are doing amazing things for the bass community. They have 2 amazing locations in Long Island, New York, and a killer online store. Go to colstein.com and use the promo code KATIE10 and you'll get 10% off your entire purchase. All right, the time has come to bring you today's episode with bassist and educator, record label producer, record label owner, business person, and so much more, Jean Perla. I really enjoyed talking with Jean. His career has spanned everything from Woody Herman, Elvin Jones, Thad Jones Mel Lewis Orchestra, Sarah Vaughan, Pepper Adams. It's so amazing the amount of music he's gotten to play and the amount of musicians he's gotten to play with. We got to talking what it was like to play with Elvin Jones and Jimmy Cobb and the difference between small group and big band and playing with a fantastic vocalist like Sarah Vaughan. This was such a fun interview. And Jean is quite the character. He's 81 years old, but you wouldn't know it. He's spunky, sassy, feisty. He was a lot of fun to chat with. He's going to have a duo concert available through Colstein's Music on their Living Room series. I'll leave links down below. And in this interview, he was joined by his duo partner, Dan Wilkins. And you can see more of my interview with Dan on that Living Room series. But without further ado, I am so excited to bring you this week's interview with Jean Perla. And I know bass wasn't your first instrument, so what was that journey for you to get to the bass?
Charlie Haden.
Yeah, a specific record, right?
Yep, Shape of Jazz to Come, Ornette's record.
Mm-hmm.
I was clearly say that I was struggling with the piano while I was a student at Berklee, and I was practicing like a fiend. And it was washing over me that I was not going to be Bill Evans too. And I was getting a little frustrated and disappointed and, down in the dumps a little bit. And a friend of mine, I saw him on the street and he said, "I've got this record, man. Would you come over and check it out? It's really something." So it was that record. And when I heard that recording with no chordal instrument, I said, "Gee, one note at a time, I can do that." So that's what happened.
Yeah, and that feeling of kind of leaving the piano, was it more depressing or was it just like a reality?
Well, it was a reality, but it was fantastic because I felt that now, even before I even, that the moment that I heard Charlie playing and it came in my mind that this is something I could do, there was no question after that. So it was just exhilarating, just to be able to say to myself, I got this.
Yeah. Well, and you had obviously heard bass players before that.
Sure.
Yeah. So what are you able to pinpoint exactly what it was about that particular record?
Well, first of all, that there was no chordal instrument.
Yeah.
That I found interesting to hear the harmonies establish, the harmonic contact established between the single line horn and the single line bass.
Yeah.
And of course in the melodies, and some of those melodies with the 3 independent lines with the trumpet, the harmony was clear, at least it was to me. And so I felt, having studied the piano as much as I had up to that point, I mean, I really worked on those chords. Bill Evans chords and the scales, what I could play over them and so forth. So I had a good handle on what harmony was already. So I said, gee, that's it. I have to pay attention to laying the root down, depending on the music, of course, but the more, maybe a way to describe it, the more commercial the music was, the more roots I played.
Yeah.
But after that, then, a lot of freedom.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that you went to, did you go to school for engineering before or after Berklee?
Before I spent 4 years at the University of Toledo. I probably have spent most of my time playing pool.
Were you a pool shark?
I'm pretty good at it, but not enough to, go out there and think I can make some money.
And hustle.
Yeah.
So why did you decide to pursue music after that?
It was another record that my friend at that time, we'd go to this particular record store, usually on most Saturdays, and check out what's the new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they had listening booths, 4 listening booths in the back of the store, where you could take it was the day of the LPs, right? And there was no such thing as shrink wrap. So you could pick out a record, put it on the turntable in that listening booth and listen to it. And 1959, Miles Davis came out with Kind of Blue, world's greatest jazz record.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard this piano player on there, Bill Evans. I'm saying like, well, that's interesting. But still the bug hadn't bitten.
Mm-hmm.
A few months later, Sunday at the Village Vanguard came out, Bill Evans' record, with, of course, ridiculous Scott LaFaro on bass, which I wasn't even paying attention to.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm listening to Bill. And the very first song called Glorious Step on that record, Bill plays da, 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 and then he plays a 3-note chord with minor second interval with 2 of the notes going down chromatic, cling, 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 like that. And I said, man, I never heard anything like that. And that was it. At that moment, I said, I want to be a jazz musician.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. And you grew up playing music.
Well, I took 10 years of classical piano, which, afforded me the ability to get around the instrument. From 5 to 15.
Yeah.
I studied.
And what was Berklee like at that time when you went to
It
Berklee?
was camaraderie. Everybody knew everybody in the old building. And it was heaven on earth for me.
Yeah.
It really was. Yeah.
Was that in the early 60s you were there? Or do you care not to say?
It was mid-60s. Wait a minute. Let me think about that. 57, 58, 62. Yeah. Early 62, 63. I started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were the, I went there too. I mean, it was quite different, but
Oh, really?
I have a lot of, most of my friends are older anyways, but a lot of my friends, who were there at that time, and it's like, Woody Herman needs whatever, a trombone player or something, Herb Palmer, someone's coming to town, and it was just, I imagine it was pretty fertile and a lot of playing happening.
Yeah, well, I have always managed to establish a situation for myself that gave me the opportunity to do a lot of playing, and that was having my own grand piano and having a set of drums. And so that gave me really an opportunity to invite people to come over and play.
Yeah. And that's like 90% of the education.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Although I have to say, I was talking with somebody about that yesterday. I really, once I got bitten that I wanted to play this music, then it was like 110% in. And I'd always go to class and I'd do these assignments as best as I could, to really, I was voracious for learning, We had a class called 4-Way Close. I don't know if you took that class, but what that is they give you a lead sheet with a melody and a chord symbol. And what you have to do is you take the melody and you put 3 notes underneath it to harmonize it. Now, if it's a chord tone, there's no problem. But if it's not a chord tone in the melody, then you have to figure out what are the passing tones for the other three instruments that are below it, you know. So anyway, I did the first one, and I did it, quite frankly, perfectly. You know, I got it all set. But the thing that was amazing was when I went into the classroom, we had two alto saxophonists, two tenor saxophonists. And what these guys did, they would play the assignments that everybody did. And when I heard my assignment and those four guys playing, I said, man, I could do this. And within a year, I was arranging for the recording band. You know, that's again because I had already a leg up on harmony. So,
what do you remember your first kind of like big gig being?
Big gig.
Yeah, or like something where you were like, just like you had the feeling of like, oh, I can do this. Like, what was that gig for you when you played and you said, okay, this is it?
I would say probably when I went to New York and landed my first, I guess it could be characterized as a high profile gig, you know, that people were aware of. I had been doing a lot of playing since and starting to travel a little bit. But when I landed that first steady gig with Willie Bobo, that was, well, I can tell you this, that there was one night where we're playing and they had a stage that was up. It was real, Count Basie's Club up in Harlem. And I looked out into the audience, and standing next to each other was Chick Corea and Wayne Shorter. And they were checking the band out. And I said to myself, wow, if they come to hear, well, okay, they didn't necessarily come to hear me, but they came to hear the band, then I said, I guess I've arrived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, you know, speaking of going on the road and things like that, I know you did a lot of playing with Elvin Jones. I was just listening to the record at the Lighthouse, which is, it's still around. It's still going. So how did that happen, you know, playing with Elvin?
I had already moved to New York, and I was playing a gig in Boston. I came back up there to play a couple of weeks there. And during the day, I happened to be in the lobby of the old Berklee School. It was still before they built that new one. And a phone call, I was standing there with a couple of my friends, and the phone call came in, and the girl sang out into the lobby. She said, hey, it's WGBH-TV. Elvin Jones needs a bass player. And what? So all I had was my electric bass. And so I ran to the car and I told the girl to say, tell him I'm coming. And I put my foot to the gas pedal to the floor. Fortunately, there were no cops. And I got there for, I don't know, 15, 12 minutes before a live half-hour show. And the band was Elvin, Joe Farrell on saxophone, and myself. That was it, right? And I didn't know what the hell they were going to play. I wasn't aware of the music they were playing. I wasn't staying abreast of that, so I didn't know. So Joe is trying to show me, you know, singing me some stuff, and it's going in one ear, out the other, because I'm trying to get a bass sound out of this Ampeg baby bass amp. And so we started to play. And later, I went to GBH and I said, could I please have a copy? And they gave me, I should have asked for the video, but they gave me a audio, and I still have it around. And I remember listening to it, and you can hear that I go off sometimes because I didn't know the song that well. But the thing is, I got in the pocket with him, you know, with Elvin in the time. And I heard afterwards, I don't know, a week or two later when I was back in New York, one or two people told me that he was saying that he was playing with this white guy who made the electric bass sound like an upright, because I've always tried to give that rounder, warmer sound out of the electric, you know. So a few months later, he called me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you play your upright with him after that?
Yeah, it was upright and recorded with the electric, but live gigs were all on the violin with a hormone problem.
Yeah. So, what was it like? I mean, I know you did a lot of traveling with him too. So, what was it like being on the road in that band? Okay, let's talk about stamina. Right, you're playing your ass off. It's Elvin Jones. What was that like? The stamina aspect of it.
I, what I've been able to do is that when I'm arriving at a point where the exhaustion is starting to make itself known, um, that's the point where I have to, I'm kind of floating, but not long, just a few moments. I'm floating in this space, and then it's a resolve that comes to me, which I've always been able to muster.
Hmm.
It's a look. It's my responsibility here. I'm here. I have to take care of business.
Hmm.
So there would be sometimes, especially with him, that I would, in order to summon energy, I would start screaming
Hmm.
as I was playing, ah, just really scream loud. And that would build something up in me, and then I could continue to go.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that's about stamina.
Yeah, I get that. And what about did he ever talk about the music with you? You know, after you guys would play, or if he needed anything else from you, or was
No, there
just the
was,
music?
someone asked me, uh, in fact, yesterday about, I saw you playing with Sonny Rollins on a video. Uh, what was that like? And what was did you speak about music? And I said, I was with Sonny on and off for close to a year. And if there were 10 words spoken between us, that probably was it. And
Mm,
my words would be like, what's the gate number? you
yeah.
know? and and there was never a conversation. And with Elvin, we did some rehearsing, and of course, then we would speak. But that was more about like what's the form, and
Yeah.
what's supposed to happen here. But there was the only thing Elvin would say to me on occasion, not often, would be like, "Turn it up,"
Mm,
because
hmm.
I always tried to. I come from the Ray Brown, Paul Chambers, no amplifier days. That's
Yeah.
where I come, and just really battling that instrument. But so he would tell me to turn the amp up,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I would begrudgingly go up a half a
Yeah, yeah.
point.
Um, and I guess I mean your experience. You talking about the Charlie Haden music that kind of changed your whole life here.
Yeah.
So, what is it like for you playing without a chordal instrument?
I can tell you this very clearly and frankly. I'm always happy when there's a chord.
Mm, okay.
I really, because that, again, the kind of music, I mean, if it's really commercial music, there's not much going on. But if it's a creative music where you're pushing the limits of harmony and rhythm, then it gives me much more freedom if there's a chord.
Yeah.
But if there isn't a chord, then I have to kind of like pull back a little bit more and pay attention more to outlining the harmony. You know, Again, it depends on the kind of band it is,
Yeah.
and the music that's being played.
It's something I'm really interested in is big bands.
Mm,
I love playing in big bands, listening to. So I know you played in Woody Herman's band
yeah,
and Thad Jones' band.
right.
Were those um, like were any of those steady, or were those kind of on and off?
Woody, I got the job, and I only stayed with him for 2 months, and
Okay.
I wanted to get off and do something else. It was wonderful, and I had a rare, a wonderful experience of actually. Woody didn't go on the bus; he'd
Yeah.
fly, but he didn't want to drive the rental car, so he always took somebody. And Bill Chase, the one who hired me in the band, after a week, he was doing it.
Yeah.
He left, and and I think probably because I was playing well, but not only that, I was at that particular time in my life, if I had a steady gig, one of the things that I attempted to do as quickly as possible was learn the music so I didn't have to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And within that week, I must have had easily 80 or 85% of the music memorized. And I think Woody picked up on that. And I guess he wanted, so through Bill Chase,
Mm-hmm.
he asked me, do I want to travel with Woody? And wow, now I'm flying around with Woody.
Yeah.
That was fabulous. But I only stayed there for a couple of months. The real deal was Thad and Mel's band. That was the
Wait,
center of it.
hold that thought, because I want to know with Woody, do you remember who was playing drums with you?
We had several different people. Probably the biggest name that you'd recognize is Ed Soph.
Okay, so cool. And at that point, that was the 60s too, I'm guessing, or was it
Late 60s, yeah.
mid 60s? So he was,
Thad and Mel was 71.
yeah. So with Woody, at that point, were you playing more concerts or like dances or kind of a mix?
Both.
Yeah.
But mostly, I call it commercial work,
Yeah.
But of course, people were there listening.
Yeah, and then just so you can educate the audience or just say your piece about this, what I got to play in some dance bands too, but do you think it's beneficial for especially, rhythm section players to play in a big band and to have that experience?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if you're talking about laying in the roots,
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you got to do that. And the thing is, the music's telling you to do that because it's usually written that way, especially in the dance band.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to support a solid pulse. That's what I've noticed that a few times playing in different big bands, where somebody will call you and you'll do maybe one gig and that's it. But I've always done well with that. And I can sense that the players appreciate that I'm able to lay down a good, solid, strong beat.
Mm-hmm.
Something that everybody's playing off of.
Yeah.
They're all playing off the bass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Okay, so now on to Thad and Mel, because that's another big key to my heart here. So how did you get that on the band for that? I know it's always like, kind of like the Elvin thing. It's like these just like little beacons. It's like, we need a bass player. You probably hear every single day that we need a bass player. That's like the most sought after instrument. So how did that happen?
Well, I don't know. I don't hear that much these days. But back then, you're right. I mean, I like to say that I was working 8 nights a week. I don't know how it happened. Thad called me on the phone, and I'm assuming, or I'm guessing, I don't know, that maybe he was talking to his brother, because I was working with Elvin. I had just joined Elvin in 71. Richard Davis decided to quit. And so they were looking for somebody, and maybe they were talking to the brothers, and Elvin said, try him out. I don't know. I really don't know. Thad called, and that's what I really know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you got in the band in 71, and that was a steady thing for you?
If Elvin was working, no. But whenever Elvin was not working, so I did it for about, 8 or 9 months.
Oh, wow.
Like that. Yeah, and quite often I played with them, And what was heartbreaking is the guy who wrote the book about that, Mel, he didn't know about me. How could he not know about me that I took over from Richard Davis?
Oh, did you do any traveling with that band?
We did a gig with Nancy Wilson in D.C. That's it. This is really before they got to the point of doing traveling.
Yeah.
It was the Monday nights at the Vanguard, which was stupendous.
Yeah, so what was that energy like? I mean, I listened to those records, and I mean, I was just listening to it before this, but it's timeless. It's just the energy. So what was it like being on that bandstand?
It was fantastic, absolutely. And I've said this numerous times. You know where the beat was? Right here, Thad's shoulders. Go like this, and that. I just look at his shoulders. I knew where the beat was, man. Wow. Yeah, it was fantastic. The place was jammed. You could just feel the excitement that people loved that band so much. And to be able to be part of that and play with guys like Jimmy Knepper and Snooky Young. And I was on the band. I was playing the night that John Faddis showed up the first time.
Yeah, and then
Roland Hanna. I mean, just Dee Dee,
Mm-hmm.
and her husband at that time.
Cecil, yeah.
Yeah.
And what was it like playing with Mel?
Well, I've been asked that also, and I can tell you that this is not exactly right, but musicians understand this, that you can be playing on top of the beat, you can be playing behind the beat, and Elvin, I don't know if I character his beat was so wide it was everywhere, But for instance, Roy Haynes for me, I would say there's a guy who plays on top of the beat, uh, and there are others who play, what you characterize as behind the beat. But and so my very first night on that gig, I wanted to test out Mel because I hadn't played with him before. I show up and start playing on a Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to find out where it was. So I don't remember which way I went first. Probably I went up on top of the beat. Wasn't working. So then I started to relax, but no, that wasn't working either. So I realized Mel right down the center. So that's where I laid with him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I've talked to a lot of bass players who
Yeah.
played with him.
Yeah.
Kind of the same consensus.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on and on with that band, and just hearing, Thad's arrangements in the bandstand like that.
Really.
Yeah.
Not
Just with
only
the-
that, they would know. I think there was only one chart that had chord symbols. In it.
Mhm.
They were all notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because I know that I know he would often start writing a bass line, and then write everything on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, I mean, it depends on what kind of chart you're reading these days. If it's like you say something commercial, like you may not want to read the bass line, but he wrote bass lines specifically, right?
Yeah.
And I'll be playing, or I'll be listening to the band, and I'm like, they're not playing the bass line that is supposed that he wrote.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes you're like, oh, I got my own thing going on. I'm just gonna.
Yeah. No, I attempted to do that, and I can tell you two stories about it.
Yes,
if you wanna
please.
hear them. Okay, so one is I don't remember the chart, but there's a soli section in the middle of the thing where the trombones and bass are playing in unison, and so I had the book for about a week before I played the first gig, because I said, Dad, can you get me the music so I can look at it in front? And so that night we played that chart, and I went off. I didn't play it right with the trombones. So on a break, he came up to me, and he came up to me, he says, and very sweet and gentle. I don't know if you knew him. He was just a sweetheart. Those three Jones boys were really something. And so he comes up to me, now, Gene, he says, you do know that you have to play this music correctly, right? Oh, man. Boy, talk about a wake-up call. So I took that chart home, man, and then the next week, I murdered that thing. And I could see he was happy about that. So the other story really is kind of a fun story. Billy Harper, okay, playing jazz tenor, right? And there was this chart where it came to him taking a solo, and he did it every way the same time. He started on the low A flat, the lowest note on the horn.
Yeah.
Right? And then he'd work his way up, scale wise. He'd go up the horn, and he played this every time for his solo. So I had already been playing with the band a few times, So unbeknownst to me, all the horn players got together on this particular night when it came to that. Everybody played the lowest A flat they could. And I was, as soon as I saw that, I said, oh, gee, they're really messing with Billy. I looked at him, didn't faze him, man. He just kept playing,
That's awesome. That's great. Oh, yeah, I've heard lots of great stories. I mean, even like, I love listening to multiple takes of songs, right? Different versions of songs. And because Thad would always, I remember the first time I heard, I don't know, maybe something like Groove Merchant or Mean What You Say or something. And it's like, when I heard a different version, I'm like, oh, wow, there's a different background, I never even thought to do that, in music. Like, it's not done. It doesn't have to be done. And hearing stories of where the books didn't make it to Europe, and so a whole
Yeah,
concert sat is just shouting out backgrounds,
yeah,
things like
yeah.
that. Just incredible, the capability and
Hmm.
musicality, and I love watching him conduct because
Hmm.
he's like, he's not playing an instrument most of the time, but he's very like an instrument up there.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. So big bands, and I know you've played with some fantastic vocalists too,
yeah.
including
Hmm.
Sarah Vaughan. Was that in a small group setting?
Yeah, we had Jan Hammer on keyboard,
Mm-hmm.
monster musician, and Jimmy Cobb on drums.
Mm-hmm.
Woohoo! What
Yeah.
a nice trio that was. Yeah, that was great.
Is there anything different or any adjustments you make when you're playing with a vocalist? I mean, I know Sarah was, you know, one of the best and just such a fantastic musician. So is there anything you change?
I just felt, I guess, that I made myself, I would restrict myself within a certain scope of whatever it was that I was playing. I didn't want to get outside too much,
Hmm.
playing notes outside the chord. I tried to really stay in and keep the harmony because that's what it was,
Yeah.
you know. She was, it was like really nice melodies and sure she improvised over that stuff, but it was all right in the scales, and so that was one thing. So that probably was, as opposed to playing with Archie Shepp.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess it's something you consider even if it's subconscious too. Okay, yeah, staying inside the lines for a vocalist because you want to make sure that they're comfortable and shining, but
yeah,
also
yeah.
considering, the audience at some point,
Hmm.
they came to hear Sarah
Hmm.
and
Oh
something
yeah,
something that they can ingest kind of easily.
absolutely. It was complete support of her. All three of us
Hmm.
were, and that's what was so wonderful about those other guys. We all felt the same way, and we all were just in tune with each other to give her the best support we could.
Exactly. Yeah, and
Yeah,
if just one person isn't doing it, it kind of falls apart.
got that right.
Yeah. Would you mind talking a little bit about, playing with Jimmy Cobb? I mean, this is so bass centric, of course, so I'm very curious.
Oh, he was such a gentle man. What a sweetheart he was. I just had so much fun. We had, I mean, it was just laughing all the time, playing with him. I just felt free as a bird,
Mm,
absolutely free as a bird with him. There was no issue with, like, hearing something in a place that was disturbing.
hmm.
Never happened. It was just it was just clear and open and just yeah. I don't know how else to describe it. It
Yeah.
was just the sweetest thing in life.
Wow.
It was a lot more work with Elvin, absolutely. What a big difference. But of course, we weren't burning like Jimmy used to burn with Miles.
Hmm.
So we were there supporting Sarah. So it was, we're restricting our capabilities,
Yeah.
and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean
No,
in
no,
a
no.
real positive way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. Um, and so, I mean, of course, so you did some touring in that band.
With Sarah, we went to South America and Japan. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
great.
oof, yeah. At that time, I'm just curious, was it kind of like a set of music that she would perform?
Yeah, yeah. There was she'd bring in different songs and in different sequences.
Hmm.
But there was a book of most of these tunes we'd play the same night.
Hmm. And do you see the value in that as well, as opposed to, okay, playing something different every single time you play in the same band? There's that kind of style of, okay, we're going to be fresh every single night, or here's kind of like the collection of tunes we play night after night.
There's no difference. There's
Hmm.
no difference. In fact, when you really know something, or at least this is my take on it, if you really know what the music is inside and out, because you've played so many times, you have a much greater opportunity to be fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Much greater opportunity.
Yeah, I totally agree too. Because, well, how many times I could listen to Miles Davis play on Green Dolphin Street 1,000 times. If he played it every single night, I don't care, And I totally agree with that experience of, yes, it's the same song, but each time it's different. And I like how you put that. It's like you have the opportunity.
Someone asked Elvin that same question about, playing My Favorite Things with Coltrane. And Elvin said, and I heard him say it numerous times, we played it every night like it was the last time we were able to play it.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a while to really understand what he meant by that. But then the more I got into playing and, being able to do the same kind of thing, playing with the same people, the same music night after night, then I, began to understand what he meant by that.
Well, I think I've made it to the end here. And maybe we could do a part 2 down the road. But Gene, do you have any parting words for bass players these days?
Give up the instrument. I need more gigs. There seems to be a complaint, although I'm not upset about it at all. It's because it's what it is. But when you have players come along, I find it curious, for instance, going back to Bill Evans' record, Sunday at the Village Vanguard with Scott LaFaro, I'm surprised that when, listening to that man, how he could play that instrument, how melodic, and how, finally I read his book and realized that, well, he was a clarinet player. That's how he got it together, I mean, certainly had the talent. But it just seemed like a long time before, the next person came along that kind of made an impression on me was Stanley Clarke. That was a lot of years, and Stanley's flurries are exciting, Eddie Gomez, a lot of chops and so forth. And then Jaco, although electric bass, turned the scene completely around. And so many young bass players have come up playing the electric bass with, getting the chops together. But the thing about Jaco, which is still endures today, is when you hear him play, it's really about the music.
Mm-hmm.
It's just music this guy is playing. He's got chops to do stuff, but it always seems to be coming from music. Whereas, as the complaint I started to say to the beginning was, so many musicians I've saying like, wow, these kids, they come up here and they can play all this chop stuff, but where's the music, and there's truth to that. So I don't know, advice or I don't know, I guess maybe the best advice I could say is listen to the old masters, listen to some of the saxophone players, Gene Ammons, Dan, I'm sure you could rattle off a bunch of names, listen to these guys, how they played, with economy and focused on melody.
Yeah.
Most of them focused on melody, that comes first. And of course, if you're playing in a band that's playing time, get your time together.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Gene. I appreciate you taking the time. I'm glad we got this to work, and I'm looking forward to seeing your concert for Colstein's.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. Take care.